whole matter, do we want to, is this something we want to invite in our town or discourage in our town? I guess that's what it really comes down to. So I mean, those numbers there, as far as commercial wise, you know, they're saying those are, I mean, I do believe Cliff when he says these people have the money, which, in one aspect I do. But, you know, take it from me, this is the first solar project we've seen here. We don't deal with them all the time, so.
I wouldn't want to be short-sighted too, because that pilot is a good chunk of money going forward. too.
Well, that's the other thing too.
I mean, if it was for the 3 jobs that they've done up there, well then, okay, they only wanna do this one, they can pay it. If they wanna come in, they're gonna come in. If they want the land, like, if we build it, they will come.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's probably the other way to look at it too, like as you said with the pilot. I mean, they're gonna return with the pilot, you know, how do we wanna weigh it?
What solar company is
Excellent.
this? Yes, you never heard of them.
Yeah,
They're new.
the idea of building it is they'll allow as much power, they'll give it to the residents of the towns and the villages at a reduced rate
Yes.
Okay.
until they run out of availability. So it is a benefit to the community besides tax coming in, it's money out of, you know, savings out of our pockets. So we shouldn't be too,
Yeah, 20, the actual solar site.
That's less than what Nelliston has, and Monolith had no problem paying that for the building permit, so.
Well, again, like as you said, the building permit, which you said they have the fee already set for that.
Okay.
Any more comments on that? Okay. Moving on, we have a letter of resignation from Joseph Falsarella.
Joe, I wanted to say it's been an absolute honor to have you as our planning board head for this time.
It has, and I appreciate the time being on it. I think it's, what, 3 years now, I want to say. I mean, I got some, you know, involved with the solar project yet, and the steering committee. I got some, you know, loose ends still to, well, I want to still keep going with the steering committee as well, but as an active member of the planning board, I'm pretty much done.
And
I'm-
best of luck in your new endeavor.
Thank you.
I know that's why you're doing it.
Mhm.
You got a family to take care of, and we
Yeah.
appreciate, but we do appreciate all those long nights looking over plans and
Yeah.
stamping things, so thank you, Joe.
I mean, I got some loose ends still to cover, you know, still in the middle of this solar project, so, I mean, I still got tons of resources, and
Any chance of you staying on until January? Or no?
as of right now, I'm already in the middle of a few things, so I've already gotten myself involved very well
I'll help
in
you.
my future. Oh, really?
I'll help you.
Okay. I'll give you split commission. As long as the Christmas party's good.
Okay, we'll get that price up.
I also had one more thing to add also. We did have a special meeting for the Abundance Acre chicken processing plant. We went ahead on it. We had to refer to the county due to the location next to a county highway, so we did have to send that to the county for review.
Okay, what's the board's pleasure with the letter?
With regrets, I feel we have to accept his resignation.
Okay.
I'll
Do we
make a
have
motion
second?
that we accept it.
I second.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Make a motion to accept the planning board report as read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the planning board report. Any further discussion on it?
Actually, if I want to add a little bit more, I mean, if the board wants me to, I can still look further into that site plan application fee. As I said, well, it sounds like that's the more aggressive end to go. If I can ask around and get more insight from other towns, as I said, the town of Florida, want to talk to them to see what they have. If we want to table it for now.
First of all, let's vote on accepting the report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. We would appreciate anything that you could do for us with regard to this fee schedule. Okay? I would think we could come up with something within the next month.
I would have hoped so 3 weeks ago. If this wasn't going to be adequate enough, you know, I probably would have looked into it a little bit further, but, so it was 3 weeks of, I could have been looking more into it.
Then you're not adverse to us contacting you with regard to these fee schedules?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, now we have a volunteer. I hereby request to be considered for appointment to the Town of Palatine Planning Board. Respectfully submitted, Paul R. Daw. All the board members know Paul. If somebody doesn't know him, is there anybody that doesn't know him? Paul, I understand, has been to school before and been on the board before. I'd like to entertain a motion to appoint him to the board.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Paul Daw to the planning board.
Okay, Sean made a motion. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a quick discussion. Hey, Paul, you spoke out last month and the month previous about a project up in Stone Arabia. Since you've been on the planning board before, you know that in an agricultural district, a permitted use is a farm products plant, but you voiced all kinds of opinion against that, even though the law is contradictory. If a resident comes up and wants to propose something that you don't personally agree with, but the law says that it's permissible, which way you're going to vote?
Whichever way the law says.
Okay. So that means that as long as it's written in the law, no matter how popular, or if anybody tries to twist your arm to change your vote for a political reason, you're going to vote exactly the way the law says.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll vote it, don't worry, Chris.
Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I didn't hear Chris.
I abstain.
No.
Okay, motion approved.
There's also another vacancy on the board, right?
That's right, now we have another one. Yeah, we have another vacancy on the planning board. Okay, Board of Ethics.
Yes, the Ethics Committee has received 2 complaint letters, and upon review of both complaint letters, they do not fall under the conflict of interest policy, which is our purview. However, they do fall under the prohibitive behavior in the employee handbook and manual, policy manual. So the question that we have from the Ethics Board, I know a few months ago when Mrs. Dunn reviewed this with the board, they should be addressed by one of the town's designated compliance officers. And I don't believe those officers have been named or appointed. So the question we have from the ethics board, are you looking at the ethics board to be compliance officers as well? And if the answer is yes, then we could proceed with the investigation and make a recommendation. So it really is up to the board, you know, what you're looking for from us.
Comments from the board? Ethics Committee as compliance officer for the town of Palatine?
Well, is it legal for them to do it? And I say, let them do it.
I don't know, I have some misgivings, I'd have to think about it. Because I really think we should have 2 compliance officers in the town. And that there's a number of things that come up in between where the Board of Ethics may meet. And some of them could be, the most logical ones would be highway related anyway, because that's where we have the most of our employees. So, I don't think at this point an entire board to make a decision from a compliance officer. Now, if the compliance officer may want to delegate, that's fine, but I think we should have someone that is designated to handle this complaint, or numbers of complaints, straightforwardly.
What do attorneys recommend?
Hmm?
What do the attorneys recommend? Can we have somebody on the ethics board, or should we have somebody on the town board plus the ethics, or somebody not related either?
So I'll relate back to our first involvement with the old ethics law. It was both Kirsten and my position that the old ethics law went well beyond the scope of what it should do, and we worked together with Hank Vandenberg in forming the new ethics law and limited that to the ethics law providing or doing the investigation and providing opinions on whether there were conflicts of interest that occurred with various employees and officers of the town. So we took away what we saw as a policing power from the ethics committee, because we believe that the board, if any policing power is involved, that the town board should have that policing power. So the complaints that were brought before the ethics board currently, many of them involve behaviors. And we still believe that the town board should probably handle the behaviors, the alleged behaviors that might violate the employee handbook, rather than designating a board to handle that. But if the ethics board were to be involved in that process, and this involves one other aspect of the complaint, this ethics board is given the responsibility of investigating complaints and providing advice and or opinions and recommendations to the board as to whether they think it was a violation of the ethics law, and the board should take some action. But they're not a board that meets to make those decisions themselves. They meet with the attorney, which is not subject to open meetings law, that is attorney-client privilege information. They investigate those matters and they bring their recommendations before the board at an open meeting, town board meeting. So I guess, Betty, my recommendation would be that the town compliance officers who would enforce these things be part of the town board. But as far as them providing recommendations to the board on this, I think the board would have to specifically designate them and possibly one town board member or somebody to be involved in investigating that. So what you're saying is like one board member work closely with the ethics board?
Uh,
I think that might be a reasonable solution. I mean, you all have enough responsibilities yourself, but maybe, with the combined help of the two, you could then have a board that investigates the behavioral issues that come up under the employee handbook, rather than just the conflict of interest issues. And as you've noticed, many of the complaints that have been brought to them, they've been giving you the same answers. This isn't within our purview, because their purview is limited, the conflict of interest types of.
So, Greg, if we had a compliance officer, just to say a member of the board or whatever, that person would, because we kind of have dual flows here. We have our volunteers and then we have our employees.
Yep.
Okay, and there's a lot of different issues in both those. And maybe if one person, they could gain some knowledge and confer with you then, so it doesn't have to go through this whole circular motion. Would that be a better?
Well, I think that would be fine. I think sometimes it helps to have more than one person, because that puts a lot of responsibility on one person.
Well, maybe they could be the point person to handle.
Sure.
Everything can flow to them, and then they can decide whether to meet a group or whatever based upon, it could be a simple thing too. It could be a very simple thing that could be just black and white. It's in the employee handbook, you advise, and that's the end of
And
it.
ultimately, the decision of what should happen as a result of that lies with the board. So it should always go from the ethics committee to the board, and if it goes through, I would say that would be fine if that person was designated as the town compliance officer.
Maybe we should appoint a compliance officer to work with the ethics board.
I think we should, I agree. I think maybe we should, next meeting, take all people who are interested in being a compliance officer, and we want, do a WADIR or WADIR, and we pick somebody. Because not having one is not good for us either at this point, right?
Well, no one's been appointed to handle those behavioral issues, right? So they're going to the ethics board. That doesn't fall under the ethics law, it falls under the employee handbook. And who on the board is handling that or investigating that, there's really no one assigned
Well,
to do that.
under the ethics law, it goes back to the town board, and then the town board has currently, without a compliance officer, it falls under all of your purview. Basically, you all have to make a joint decision, which I guess you could do in executive session, or like you said, Sean, nominate and elect somebody to.
But at the same time, if we have, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if we have an employee in highway that has a problem and wants to talk about their supervisor or whatever and come to us, we should have a compliance officer. It's spelled out that there's a chain of command to report, correct?
It works well that way, to have somebody to come to. And then, obviously, if that's the person that they have a problem with,
Right, there's a
there should be
backup.
some alternative avenue so they can voice it.
So basically, we should nominate a compliance officer and an alternate.
The handbook now says that the town supervisor and the deputy supervisor are such folks.
In absence of appointing.
Yes.
But the recommendation is that you appoint someone else.
Okay, previously, I brought up the point that I thought it would be a good idea if we had a compliance officer from outside the local political board.
Wouldn't that be
For a lot of reasons. Sometimes the problems involve board members. Sometimes they can involve supervisors. Sometimes they can involve elected officials. There are many different legal ramifications there and many different paths to follow. I suggested previously that we look to the county and try to have somebody from outside that the ethics board can bring their charge to.
We had investigated, do you mean in the county government? We fielded that question to them and they said no, many months ago.
No hot potato, huh?
Yeah, I reported that to you at one
Okay.
point.
That's wonderful.
They will not take on that.
It-
Got it on their plate anyway.
Yeah, it very well could be a professional too. It doesn't have to come from a political entity.
There are mediators that you can hire. I don't know how expensive they are. I think you've actually been one.
Yes, I
haven't you? What
They
sort
can
of-
run 90 to 135
For a mediation.
for a mediation. Depending on it.
I actually think the mediation strategy would be good, because the tendency around here has been to use the ethics board and ethics complaints as a political football, in my opinion, notwithstanding that some of us have had some bad behavior on occasion, I would be the first to admit to that. But it tends to be, oh, I'm just looking for something to hit you up with the ethics board on, and that's been voiced by people in this room.
I mean, Greg, you've done some ADR. You get it. It's a good way to go. It's a lot easier than litigation.
I think it's a very good way to go.
I do have to mention that if you choose to do that, you have to change your law again, because that's not what this says. This law says you
Yeah.
go to a compliance officer, which, actually is what's recommended. Not that compliance officer, if it turns into litigation, that you end up going to mediation, but you can't mediate an ethics complaint or some of
Right.
these
Right.
harassment complaints. So I think, in this instance, I think you're better off getting a compliance officer, and I like the idea of the alternate. It can be from outside, it can be anyone you want, you can hire them on an as-needed basis, sign a contract or whatever you want for whatever time period you want. And then that person could always recommend mediation if you need to go that route.
What do we have, 2 cases now in the hopper? Do they involve board members? I would rather see it go to some kind of a mediator, rather than keep scratching and scratching on the same itch. All right, and the same, you take an employee that has a beef with their supervisor. The supervisor writes it up, goes to the ethic board, and then there's a burr in the saddle with the employee with the supervisor, and told who knows when. If it goes to an outside mediator or something of that nature, it can make for smoother employee relations in the future.
Plus two, a fresh set of eyes looking at both sides.
Now, I do know from the courts that Catholic Charities does mediation. So that may be,
Who's that?
Catholic Charities,
Oh,
they do mediations.
Yes,
So it may be something, I don't know what the charge is on that.
well, our employment situation is a little complicated too. There's a lot of different legal things to look at. I mean, our employee handbook, our labor relations agreement. It's not for the faint at heart. It's for somebody who is well-versed. That wouldn't be me. So, I would have to turn around and consult an attorney with the people in the highway department, just because of the nature of the beast. And if we appoint another board member here, I think you have pretty much the same situation. I'll look into who's available for mediation in our local area and get back to you. And let's let the board kick it around a little more with some names. Yes, sir.
I've got a question in general regarding the employee handbook. One of the issues that I know Kirsten and I had was based around the question of what a conflict of interest is. And my position was on that, I'm trying to reconstruct our probable argument as well as I can, but